This is the High-Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Better Sports Network, and the FFPC. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman and the FFPC on X at FFPC. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everyone that you can get a listeners-only 10% discount to RotoViz by using the code RVRadio2025. That's RV Radio 2025. Your subscription gives you unlimited access to all of the RotoViz content and tools, and it supports the podcast channel as well. Now, without further ado, here's the latest episode of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. Hi, hello, and welcome to 2026. We made it, and this is the latest episode of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown, presented to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. My name is Eric Balkman. You can find me on X at Eric Balkman. Of course, you know me from the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Fantasy Football Players Championship, and this show, obviously. Oh, and the FFPC Insider Access show on the Better Sports Network as well. Got a good show for you lined up tonight because it is that time of year when we are all putting together those lineups, trying to win the $500,000 grand prize in the Fantasy Football Players Championship World Famous Playoff Challenge. It is a competition that's been around for years. It is a competition that is easy to submit lineups in. It is a competition that will pay out a $500,000 grand prize once again this year. Remember, you are submitting one quarterback, two running backs, two receivers, a tight end, a kicker, a defense, and 4 flexes. The slant, you can only pick one player per team. So if you want to go with Justin Herbert, you cannot have Amarian Hampton. If you want to roll with Saquon Barkley, you can't have A.J. Brown. That is the way we do it. That is how the FFPC does it. And you can register now. $200 entry fee will get you eligible for that $500,000 grand prize. Sign up now at myffpc.com. And don't forget, there is a second playoff challenge as well with the FFPC. It is a $35 entry fee, but it features a $100,000 grand prize. So there is still time to turn a measly $35 into a $100,000 grand prize. That is all available at myffpc.com. That is myffpc.com, where to go on that. Now, if you are looking for some advice, if you are looking for some tips, if you are looking for some player evaluation before you submit those lineups, look no further because we have a former champ on the HSLD tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy was a co-champion of the $100,000 grand prize in the 2015-2016 World Famous FFPC Playoff Challenge. He's played every year since then as well. Coming up on the show tonight, we will break down all the teams, all the matchups in the first round, as well as maybe getting this guy to dispense some secrets on how to win this competition. Please welcome back onto the show, Mr. Harshal Sheth. Harshal, welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back on, Eric.
It's a pleasure. You have not reached that mountaintop in 10 years, but you never know. Maybe this is the year. And obviously 500K a little bit better than 100K. That's the plan, right?
It is. We've come close a couple times since then, but haven't sealed the deal. So hopefully this is the year.
This could be the year. And I think that, I don't think that was the inaugural edition that you and Tejas Bodawala, who's been on this program before too. I don't think it was the inaugural edition that you guys won. But that said, 10 years is a long time. How do you think this competition, submitting lineup, strategy, game theory, how do you think it's evolved over 10 years? Or is it just as simple as it was back then? Just pick the right players and you'll win.
Yeah, if only it were that easy. It has evolved tremendously. I think when we won it, there was a 2,500 entrant cap, and in recent years that's jumped to 7,500. So just the sheer numbers game in terms of trying to win it is that much harder. We've had a couple more top 10 since then, but there's a big difference in terms of the pay from first to even third. So just the sheer number of people there make it challenging. And I think overall contestants are much more savvy now than they were back then. You mentioned game theory. I think that's huge because there's a lot of strategy beyond just picking who you think is the best player on each team. It really forces you to kind of analyze. And unlike other sports playoffs, the NFL reseeds each round. So you can't even easily project what the next round will be just based on single matchups. There's a lot of variables that go into it. And then analytics are just everywhere nowadays, whereas 10 years ago, it wasn't so easily accessible. We were really doing deep dives into data to try and come up with optimal player configurations. And so I think just between the number of people, the available information, programs like yours that elicit feedback from people, it's just that much harder to put together a team that can separate from everybody else.
Does that, I mean, so strategy wise, team building wise, your approach to this, have you tweaked it based on, deeper pool, smarter owners, more access to more information? Have you tweaked the way that you actually assemble these lineups compared to what you're doing 10 years ago?
Totally. I've increased the number of entries that I put in for that sheer numbers aspect of it. But you just have to You have to do a deeper dive. And previously, up until there were just 6 teams, now you have 14 teams total, and there are 4 flexes instead of 2. Mm-hmm. So I think last year I had a team that had 5 tight ends on it, as an example, just because of the premium that goes into the tight ends that I don't think a lot of people pay as much attention to. So you have to adjust constantly if you want to win this thing.
I think that the other stuff that we'll get into tonight, that might be tips, just sort of like overarching strategy, that might come up in some of the teams we talk about here. But I want to get into some player evaluation, some team construction. Let me ask you this, actually, before we get into that. So I was on Sirius XM a few hours ago with Howard Bender, Jim Bowden, and we were talking about this competition. And I said a lot, and they asked me like, well, what are the secrets? What are the tips? And I said, well, listen, I go to the players. Like, I talk to the people that have actually been successful, that have won this. And one of the things that I think always seems to come up when I talk to the people who win the 500K or the 100K or whatever, is the importance of for each team filling out your NFL playoff bracket first before you start worrying about players. Is that something that you would say is a must as well?
Yeah, you have to start backwards, basically. And so the way that we've always done it, and that I continue to do it now, is by projecting out what I think the entire playoff bracket will look like, and then looking at the Super Bowl contestants and saying, okay, what 2 do I want from there? In an ideal world, you have a QB and a high point player, which is either going to be receiver or running back. For the most part, during the Kansas City years, Travis Kelce was a big option there as well. And so starting there, then seeing who are the teams in the conference championship, especially, again, years ago when there were 2 buys, you had 2 teams that were not going to get that additional game, which of course the Super Bowl makes up for because you get double points. But now there's just a single buy. So one of the teams in the conference championship is going to be playing 3 games at minimum. And so you're going to want to know which 4 teams are playing at the end, because you really want to be loaded up on those guys, not with kicker or defense, but with skill position players. So you have to work backwards and then kind of see what are the correlated outcomes. So having Saquon Barkley, if he was in last year's form, and Christian McCaffrey, that sounds nice, but then one of those 2 are going to be eliminated right away because they're playing each other. And so you really want to try and correlate your picks to say, okay, based on these outcomes of games that I'm predicting across the entire NFL playoffs, what makes sense with what. So I don't want to have my quarterback going against my defense if I think that they're both going to advance, as an example. So you have to work backwards. You just cannot start assembling from week 1 on.
Tom Smith in the YouTube chat right now. I'm going to throw this up because this is going to be a good springing off point into the first team I want to ask you about. Most likely hard fades: Steelers, Panthers. Let's talk about the Panthers here. Now, in thinking about this competition in previous years, I cannot remember, there are teams that come in as the 7 seed or the 6 seed, or again, like the Panthers are the 4 seed, the worst of the division winners. There are teams that come in, and I could tell myself a story, right? Where this could actually work out by not fading this team. But I look at Carolina, They're at home. They're 10.5-point underdogs. They basically have a split backfield between Hubbard and Dowdle. They have a wide receiver one in Teteroa McMillan that has a ton that I shouldn't say a ton. He has had numerous games this year that were just clunkers, right? There's no tight end to speak of. The defense is nothing special. The kicker to me, I mean, it's a rookie. I don't know how much they're going to be kicking against the Rams as well. I personally don't remember an easier team to fade than Carolina. Am I wrong in this? Can you tell yourself a story of like, well, actually, Balky, don't forget about this, about the Panthers? How are you looking at this squad?
Well, so I'll offer you this. The NFL is the great unknown. What seems obvious never necessarily is. And two examples, one from, I want to say early 2010, 2011, something like that. Seattle was a 7-9 division winner, and they hosted the Saints, Drew Brees, Jimmy Graham, that collection, and they were 11-point underdogs. Seattle won the game outright.
Right.
2 years ago, Miami with Skylar Thompson was at Buffalo as a 14-point underdog, and they lost 34-31. There's nobody that would have presumed that Miami would have had a chance then. And so again, with the 14 teams and the 12 positions, we're going to lose 6 teams this weekend, of which in an ideal world, you have the 2 that you have faded, a kicker and defense, but you're still going to have 2 skilled position players, whether they're flexes or, running back, receiver, tight end, quarterback, whatever, that you're going to want to get some points from. And so while it seems obvious that the Steelers, and we'll probably talk, or the Panthers, and we'll talk about the Steelers, are the easy fades, you still need to at least consider the possibilities. And that's where having those extra entries help you, because if you don't differentiate, you may be right with Pittsburgh and Carolina being the fades, but 80% of the entries are going to be like that as well.
Right. I think I said 90% on serious. I was like, I was like, I don't want to say 90%, but I think it could be 90%. The team that the that the Panthers are opening up against is the Los Angeles Rams. And it's funny because the Rams, the Niners, and the Seahawks coming down to the last couple of weeks of the season, it was crazy how all of them had a shot essentially at the 1 seed, right? And now the Rams are on the road to start the postseason. But we have heard, I know Evan Silva was just talking about this on Establish the Run podcast, that we heard all season how good the Rams were, that they're the best team in the league. And now here they are at the 5 seed. Well, they are double-digit favorites in the first round. We know they can beat anybody. And we've seen, I'm looking at FanDuel Sportsbook right now, they have the second shortest odds to win the Super Bowl, which is crazy considering they're the 5 seed in the NFC, or maybe not so crazy. And then in this competition where you can only pick one quarterback, I wonder about Matthew Stafford. Seems a little weird to pick a quarterback, to utilize that position on a player that's going to be on the road every single week if it plays out that way with the higher seed winning, right? It's weird to think about, but we have to discuss it. How dark of a horse is Matthew Stafford in this? And could he potentially be that $500K winner for you?
Yeah, I mean, the Rams similarly have a lot of really good players. It's going to be hard for me to think that someone is going to want to take Kyron Williams, definitely not Blake Corum, one of their 3 tight ends. They run a lot of 13 personnel. Even Devontae, right? I mean, like, he's the wizard of the 1 and 2 yard touchdown passes, but the volume just isn't there when you have Puka and Stafford. And so I suspect that everyone is going to be on Puka or Stafford, probably more Puka, because even with Stafford having so many more touchdown passes than everybody else this year, he still was only the quarterback 2, I think, in most fantasy, because he doesn't offer you anything with rushing. But for every touchdown that he's throwing to a tight end or to Kyron or to Devontae that Puka is not getting, he definitely could be a difference maker, especially if they get to the Super Bowl. Yeah. So I think you're going to see a split with people having Puka and Stafford, and the split's going to be mostly between people that have multiple entries. I think for people that are just playing one entry, you're probably going to see more Puka as the pick. But I don't think Stafford's that much of a dark horse. I think people look at the Rams and say, look, they lost 4 games this year. One was on a blocked field goal at Philadelphia. They dominated the Seahawks in week 16. They lost to the Panthers in a very fluky game where They had a pick six, interception in the end zone, and the Panthers had 2 fourth down broken play touchdowns. They could be very easily a 16-1 team. So I don't think it's that crazy to think that the Rams could run the table.
And I'll say this too. What about the opposite? What about what if the unthinkable happens and the Rams go down early, or maybe they win one game and then they're out? What happens if it's Devontae Adams, who had all this rest for his hamstring, who ends up coming out and evening the playing field and actually outscoring Puka Nacua in 1 or 2 games? We've seen that happen this season. The Kyron Williams aspect too. Now I know he's in a split backfield, but that should lower his ownership a little bit as well, splitting with Corum. And there's going to be some crazies out there with numerous teams that are going to put Blake Corum on teams as well. So I think the Rams are very, very interesting going forward, not only this weekend, but for the entire competition. The Green Bay Packers are the 7 seed for seemingly the umpteenth year in a row. They go to Chicago this opening weekend. Now, they are a banged-up team right now. Obviously, no Tucker Kraft. Josh Jacobs is certainly dealing with a really serious knee injury that he's been playing through here. You have Dontavian Wicks in concussion protocol. Jordan Love just cleared concussion protocol. And yet the Packers are only a 1.5-point underdog against the Chicago Bears. So there are going to be some people, rightly or wrongly, planning on multiple games for the Packers. 2, probably. I don't know if they get to 3. I don't even know if they get to 2, quite frankly. So how do you handle the Packers in this competition? I mean, I don't think, Harsh, that you would choose Jordan Love, but who's the right Packer? Is it Christian Watson? Is it somebody else? When you look at the Packers, is there any player that stands out to you here based on how far you think Green Bay is going to go?
Yeah, so I'd be remiss to say, and maybe you remember, but I'm a huge Lions fan, but I live in Chicago.
Right.
So I don't have a dog in this race, but the energy here is palpable, and it's just going to get more and more intense as Saturday night approaches. That game is a total toss-up. That line keeps flipping between -1 on either side. Depends on the day and the time that you look. So it's totally a game that can go either way. There are no secrets between these teams. They've played twice in the last month. So this is going to be the 3rd time now in like 5 weeks that they're playing each other. I think both Ben Johnson and Matt LaFleur are great game planners. So there might be some secrets, but ultimately, or some sneaky plays that come up. But ultimately, I think this is going to be a low-scoring contest because I think Chicago's going to want to trust their run game. The Packers, you mentioned, their defensive injuries are mounting up. They're not as stout against the run right now. And so even if you have Green Bay winning this game, they then go to Seattle, where there's another elite defense waiting for them. That would be the guaranteed 7-1 matchup. Mm-hmm. Packers are good at explosive plays, so it's going to be totally a crapshoot. I don't think, if you're looking for pure upside, Watson is probably the play. The Bears are not that good in the defensive backfield. So you probably will see some shot plays to Watson. But overall, you're looking at a guy that might get 4 or 5 targets in a game. Is he going to produce that much within those? Maybe. But the Packers, it's really one of those, when you build out your playoff construction, if you think the Packers are losing this game, that's a fade team right there.
Mm-hmm. It's weird. I'm looking at, like I said, I'm looking at the FanDuel Super Bowl odds here. And despite the Packers being an underdog in Chicago, they actually have shorter odds to win the Super Bowl than the Bears. Kind of surprising there. They are, I think, middle of the pack. The only teams in the NFC that have shorter odds than them are Seattle, LA, and Philly. They're actually better than Chicago, San Francisco, and obviously Carolina as well. Speaking of the Bears, it was wild to see this team evolve, the offense evolve over the course of the season. I mean, you're in it, you know what it's like, but from an outsider's view here, I'm in Northeast Wisconsin. I look at it from the standpoint of this team. Every time I was ready to call them fake, they go out and beat somebody, like the Philly game. Like after they beat Philly on Black Friday, I'm like, okay, they're for real here. I think Ben Johnson's a really good coach. I think that that the offense is starting to crescendo as we saw against San Francisco in Week 17. What an unbelievable game that was. And yet it's not the players at the start of the season, like the DJ Moores and the Roma Dunzes and the Cole Kmets of the world, that were really off and running. It's these 2 rookies, Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. And the question here is, how willing are you to stake your Bears representative on a rookie tight end or on a rookie receiver who, quite frankly, isn't necessarily a dominant number one option. He could be the number one option in Chicago, but I think that kind of varies week by week right now. But Loveland and Burden, I mean, are these the obvious choices? It's weird to have a pair of rookies on a 2 seed, but it seems like that's what we're looking at with this Bears offense, Harsh.
Well, I'll expand that pair to make it a trio and say Kyle Monangai needs to be considered as well. He runs very mean. That game against Philadelphia specifically, him and Swift, I think, were both over 100 yards with a touchdown. I think the Week 17 game was awesome. I was actually in San Francisco at that time visiting my in-laws, and so we were watching the game, and it was great TV, up and down affair, passing. But San Fran's got a lot of deficiencies because of their injuries themselves. I don't think the Bears and Ben Johnson want to play a game where they're in a track meet. They've got a strong offensive line. They've got 2 running backs that can pound the rock. I think that's what they want to do. The Packers are really good at preventing explosives. And so what Luther Burden did Week 17 against a very deplete San Fran secondary is not what's going to happen against the Packers, I don't think. So between Loveland and Burden, if you're going to pick one, I think Loveland is the better option. Especially given the 1.5 tight end bonus.
Yeah.
But I really think you're looking at Loveland or Monangai as the options. And I think you definitely can go there because, again, for those permutations where you have the Bears beating the Packers, you're going to get 2 games at minimum. And they've already shown the blueprint of beating Philadelphia if that's who they play. Or if San Fran comes to Chicago, or no, it wouldn't be. If San Fran wins and the Bears win, San Fran goes to Seattle. So then if you have Bears and Rams, I don't think the Bears want to get in the track meet with the Rams,
No.
So again, you're looking at trying to lower the possessions, run the ball, hold the ball, short passes. So Loveland and Monangai are the 2 that I would look at there.
And even against the Niners, who did the Bears play? Well, Detroit, obviously. I think in Week 16, Week 7, even like just throughout this home stretch here in December. Loveland's been doing it intermediate, short, deep. I mean, he's been doing it all. Like basically since he let everybody know who he was against that Cincinnati in that Bengals game where he took that big pass at the end of the game. I mean, like he has really stepped up. And then you extrapolate it out too. When you look at who they could be playing, Loveland might be the star there on that offense in order for the Bears to move the ball down the field and for you to be moving on up the leaderboard in the FFPC Playoff Challenge. Shifting back to the AFC. No Lamar Jackson in this year's playoffs. There is no Patrick Mahomes in this year's playoffs. However, we do get Josh Allen once again, but he's not the 1 seed, not even the 2 seed. The Bills are the 6 seed as they kick things off in Jacksonville. There is going to be a tough click for people to choose a quarterback that is a 6 seed that granted is a favorite in Jacksonville in the first round, but that's going to be a tough click for a lot of people to utilize such a premium position on a player that could be one and done. But I have to think about the Buffalo playoff experience that they've had over the last several years, the fact that it's just him and James Cook, and it'll have to be Josh Allen carrying the load. What's the likelihood that you think Josh Allen could be the linchpin in the $500,000 team this year?
I think that you're going to see a huge ownership of Allen. I don't think that anyone's going to want to go just James Cook. Of course, Cook has had some amazing games, but again, if you're thinking the Bills are advancing, that's 4 potential games, and push comes to shove, that Allen's keeping the ball. He's going to run it inside the 10. He's going to have one of those games where he scores like 40 or 50 points and you're dust if you don't have him. I think the bigger issue is, can they even beat Jacksonville? Right? I mean, everyone is just saying because the Chiefs aren't there and the Ravens aren't there, that if it isn't Buffalo this year, Josh Allen's never going to win it. I don't buy into that logic. I mean, Josh Allen was superhuman against the Chiefs when they lost with 14 seconds giving the ball back, right? That's not Josh Allen's fault. And this Bills team is not as good as previous Bills teams. They can run the ball better, sure, but they can't stop the run at all, right? And you're looking at a Jags team that is woefully underrated right now. If they played anywhere outside of Florida, this would be a team that would be scaring people a lot more. They're 8 wins in a row. Trevor Lawrence over the last 5 weeks has looked finally like the guy that we all thought he would be 5 years ago. And they can move the ball. They went into Denver and put up a huge number against an elite defense. Buffalo is not an elite defense. pinning your hopes on Buffalo to beat Jacksonville is simply a bet on Josh Allen, which is fine. But I do think that there are going to be a lot of teams that go up in flames right away if the Jags win. And I don't think the Jags should be an underdog.
I'm going to look at that right now, actually, because I know there were some line movements on this.
I think it was still at 1.5 for the Bills when I last checked.
All right. That's what I'm seeing as well. 1.5 for the Bills. Okay. So, speaking of the Jags, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, out of the 14 teams in the playoffs, this is the one team that I think could be the most diverse as far as player ownership. You have all these pass catchers, right? Obviously, Brian Thomas Jr., there's be a lot of people, given the season that he had, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to be believing in him in the postseason, which I get, but you can't deny the talent. You also have Parker Washington on this team, who's really, really come on the last month and a half of the season. And this guy also has the potential for special teams, punt returns for touchdowns as well. The midseason addition of Jacoby Myers, who looked like he was being completely misused in Las Vegas, given the way that he stepped up. And Jacksonville's already extended him. So you know that they like him and he's going to factor in. That's just the receivers. You have Brenton Strange that we have to talk about in 1.5 point tight end premium PPR in this competition, a player that spent some time on IR this season, came back, and he looks really good. And then Travis Etienne, player that I think a lot of people were down on at the start of the season. And now you look at him, and certainly he can. I think John Hansen from Fantasy Points calls it, God, what does he call it? This is going to irritate me now. GEP, goose egg potential. And he said Travis Etienne has some pretty high goose egg potential. But, man, you think about that just a couple of weeks ago, he caught 3 touchdowns from the guy that we also have to factor in, who also may be a tough click, Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. Unbelievable season that he's had, especially the last 2 months. But are you really pinning your hopes on Trevor Lawrence to get to the Super Bowl? I don't know, man. Like, I just rattled off seemingly 15 players that you can choose from Jacksonville. This is a total brain stew trying to figure out which one of these guys to go with.
I mean, this year is unlike any of the past 13 that I've played. I think, I don't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago, but FFPC, as soon as the teams were locked, wildcard weekend put up all the ownerships of all the players, whereas before we'd have to mostly guess. And so now you could see that, Saquon is on 75% of the teams or whatever the case may be. And last year there were so many chalk plays because there were studs that just stood out and it filled your roster. You're not going to see that this year. And Jacksonville is a perfect example of that, right? Like, you normally wouldn't want to pin your hopes on ETN, but I just talked about how the Bills are so atrocious against the run. Yep. If they win, they're looking at a potential matchup with the Patriots if they beat the Chargers. And the Patriots, I think, are overrated in the market too. We don't know what their defense is. They used to be good against the run, but they're not anymore because of all their injuries. So you could very easily get 2 games, maybe even 3 with ETN. But similarly, if you're advancing, Lawrence is running inside the 5-yard line, inside the 10-yard line for the end zone. And he's been putting up monster numbers the last few weeks, including against Denver. So, Brian Thomas Jr., I didn't even consider him. I forgot about him, honestly, when I was thinking about who I would be looking at there. But Parker Washington, kind of all scoffed when he was involved in a trade in our fantasy league. We're like, Parker Washington, come on, like several weeks ago. And then all of a sudden, here he goes. Jacoby, you talked about, and Brenton Strange, I had some ownership of him, and I think that he's a really solid option too. So that's going to be a flip of the coin, honestly. But I go back to the permutations. If you have the Jags advancing to the AFC Championship, let alone the Super Bowl, you're going to really make or break your season or your competition with who you pick here.
I want to go to San Francisco, because if there is a NFC version of the Jaguars, this is probably it. I don't think it is, quite frankly, but I think it's the closest we might have. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Jawan Jennings, I think, is back in play with Ricky Pearsall maybe not playing this week against the Eagles. He's dealing with that knee injury. I think the defense is out, but Pinheiro, Purdy, if you believe in the Niners, certainly I believe your in-laws probably believe in them for sure. When you think about when it comes down to it, the volume that McCaffrey has had, and you're not drafting him at for a season-long thing. You're drafting him, or you're choosing him essentially for a multi-week run that's going to take roughly a month, maybe a little over a month. So I think the injury concerns probably go down with him a little bit, but the volume's still going to be there. So is the volume and the amount of touches that he's expected to get, does this make him a must roster, or do you think that this is a good opportunity to pivot to a guy like Kittle or Jennings or somebody like that?
I look at this as a possible pivot. If you, I don't expect you to remember, but in the year that we won, our big pivot was off of Antonio Brown, and we ended up with Martavius Bryant instead back when he was good before his drug endeavors. And we just got fortunate that AB got taken out by Burfict against Cincinnati, so he missed the Denver game.
What? Hold on. How many games did the Steelers win that year in the playoffs?
No, they played 2.
They played 2. Okay, all right.
They lost at Denver.
So in that,
we got a free game of Martavius Bryant because AB had to miss it because he was concussed.
Right. So in that Bengals game, and that first game, I can't remember. Was that early in the game that Burfict?
Very end. Burfict laid him out near the end.
Okay.
Yeah, and Bryant still did well in that game, and then he did really well against Denver.
So do you remember, and this is probably meaningless, do you remember who had more points in that Bengals game between Brown and Bryant?
I think Bryant did.
Bryant did.
I'd have to look, but if he didn't, it wasn't a significant difference.
Right. And this was still Le'Veon Bell days too, right?
I want to say, I was thinking about that earlier, and I think it had to have been, unless he sat out that year. But
okay.
AB had a huge ownership, which wouldn't make sense if Le'Veon was playing.
Right. I'm going to look it up right now while you talk about this.
Yeah,
so that was 2016.
It was January of 2016. Yeah.
January 2016, right? So that was, and then who'd you say they played? Denver?
Denver after that, I'm pretty sure.
All right, I'll look it up here and figure this out. Anyway, getting back
to the Niners,
the pivot play for the Niners here.
Yeah, first off, I feel so bad for Kyle Shanahan. That guy should have 2 Super Bowls to his name right now if it wasn't for bogus calls in both Chiefs Super Bowls. And they need a new strength and conditioning coach or something out there, because they just keep getting ravaged by injury after injury after injury. And now you're dealing with Trent Williams is hurt. I mean, he missed the game against the Seahawks for the NFC 1 seed. So he had to have been very, very badly injured with the hamstring, where even if he plays this week, he's not going to be at full capacity. The Eagles are stout on defense. And the last time San Fran played at Philly, that was the game where Christian McCaffrey had to take snaps at quarterback because they were down to their 4th string, right?
Yeah.
It's bad luck for them, because this is not a good matchup. They're not going to be able to exploit Philly on defense. And because of how badly injured they are on defense, Philadelphia's terrible offense might actually have a shot to put up some points on them. C-Mac is, outside of a couple games, he's not much of a rushing threat anymore, right? I mean, he did well against the Bears rushing, but his threat is as a receiver. But if they're down big to Philadelphia, they're going to have to throw it downfield. They're not going to be able to just kind of dink and dunk their way down there. So yeah, McCaffrey might still get you 7 for 50 or something like that. But if you're looking at a one and done San Fran and you're getting somewhere sub 20 points from McCaffrey, that's not going to be all that great relative to other random people from other teams that lose that could provide you. So I think if you're looking at the Niners, it's probably McCaffrey. Kittle will have these games where they just decide that he's going to run block and he'll have 1 target. And he's perfectly fine with that because of how good he is as a blocking tight end. Jennings is good for inside the 10-yard line, but he really doesn't give you that much volume. And Pearsall, I don't know, some people really like him, I guess, but he can't ever stay healthy.
Right. Yeah. And makes the, I mean, the other thing too is like that game is that Sunday.
Yep.
So we will not know whether even Pearsall is active for that game by the time the lineup's locked.
I can't imagine anyone taking him. No. I mean, just from the sheer perspective of he may not play. Right. I mean, for these guys to have not played against the Seahawks when a 1 seed would have gotten them a bye, they have to be well beyond injured, where even if they play this week, they're not at 100%.
That's a good point. Excellent point. Update on Le'Veon Bell. 2018 was the season that he missed. Okay. 2016 was the season that he missed the first 3 games because of the marijuana thing.
The 2016 season or 2015?
2016 season. I'm working back. That was the 2016 season. Now the 2015 season, which is the year that we're talking about here at the playoff, he actually had a season-ending torn MCL. In week 6, and it was D'Angelo Williams.
Yeah, because I knew that we were pivoting from AB, and I couldn't remember.
Right.
If Le'Veon was healthy, he would have been equally in play, and I don't know that we would have gotten 2 out of sorts by taking Martavius Bryant at that point.
Right. Now here's the trivia about this. So you guys ended up winning the 100K because Vontaze Burfict knocked out Brown with that concussion in the wild card game.
Yeah.
In week 6, Le'Veon Bell tore his MCL on a hit against the Bengals made by
Vontaze Burfict.
Yeah. How about that?
He was
taking out Bell and Brown in the same season.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Time is a flat circle, as Russ Cole always says.
Right.
Eagles play the Niners in this game. The other kind of variable is Kevin Patullo, right? The offensive coordinator for Philly that has had a very interesting relationship with fans over the course of the season. Doesn't seem like he can do anything right, and maybe he can't.
It's Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, it is Philly too. That's another good point. But I look at it from the standpoint of like we keep waiting for things to just all of a sudden click, right? Where Hurts is doing it on the ground and through the air, where it's AJ Brown, Devonta Smith running all over, catching balls all over the field, and Barkley's running roughshod, right? And that just hasn't happened. And I guess maybe the point here I want to make is anybody thinking that it's all of a sudden going to click for the defending champs when the postseason starts, I don't know if that's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then I think we go back to Saquon Barkley, or unless you believe that they go back to back, or at least win the NFC again, then maybe you pick Hurts. But when it comes down to this passing game, I just have no faith in it right now, and certainly if I'm going to take Smith or Brown, it's because I think that San Francisco might upset them, and it could be because remember the couple of the big AJ Brown games this year came in Eagles losses, right? So if you foresee that happening again, where the Niners come into Philly and beat them, maybe it's a 12 catch for 133 yards and 2 touchdowns for AJ Brown. I don't know, but I think that's the only way I would look at the Eagles passing offense. Am I wrong? How are you looking at this, Harsh?
Yeah, I mean, this Eagles team has 2023 vibes written all over it. That team was a sort of magical 11-1. Then they finally started fading, and then they got killed at Tampa. And that year it was the defense that sucked. This year it's the offense. And it baffles me that Philadelphia chose to sit everybody in week 18 when they had the 2 seed in their sights. Maybe they didn't want to play the Packers. I don't know. But, I just can't understand it, because this isn't like a humming team that was on all cylinders. They need the reps. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he's got a Super Bowl, so you can't discredit and disrespect the guy, but he doesn't look good. He can't read his own defense to save his life right now. And AJ Brown, even against the Bears, his final stat line looked good because he caught, I think, 1 or 2 late touchdowns, but they're not throwing it to him all that often. Again, that said, San Fran is in shambles defensively.
Right.
Yeah. Even Seattle, that 13-3 game wasn't a 13-3 game. It was much, much worse than that. So if there's any chance for the Eagles to liven up, this is the team against which they can do it. But ultimately, I don't know that the coaching staff is going to trust Jalen Hurts, that is. And I think it's Saquon or bust, right? I mean, even at the Bills a couple of weeks ago, week 17 also, they had 0 completed passes in the second half. Right. That's the second time that happened in a game this year. Like
it's really
0.
unbelievable. It's
0.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense. And I don't think they can just flip a switch, because if they could, they would have.
I think that the game is going to be pretty compelling to watch. I don't really have a good feel on who's going to win it, obviously. The Eagles are 4.5-point home favorites.
And it jumped from 3.
Yeah, that's true. It did. Yeah. So that is interesting. That is the afternoon game on Sunday, I believe, right?
Yeah, the mid.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to New England here. We haven't talked about them at all. And if you look at the Super Bowl odds, they have the second shortest odds of getting to the Super Bowl in the AFC. Again, I just picked FanDuel arbitrarily. New England is looking at plus 1,000. Denver's looking at plus 650. Now, if you are looking at the Patriots making a quick exit in the postseason, whether that's to the Chargers or maybe they win one game and then they lose the next one, I don't know. Or maybe even if you're not projecting, I mean, here's what it comes down to. I think if you are picking the Patriots to get to the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl, Drake Mace would seem to be the choice. If you are picking them to get upset, maybe in the first round or the second round, then we have a conversation, right? Hunter Henry, Trevion Henderson, Stephon Diggs, right? There are some options there, but they're options with warts. Do any of the Patriots pass catchers, rushers, tight ends stand out to you if you believe the Patriots make a quick trip to Cancun instead of a long trip to Santa Clara?
I think Hunter Henry makes a lot of sense. Again, the critical importance of constructing your team once you've projected everything out. So if you think the Pats are going to lose this weekend, then at some point late in that game, they're going to be forced to throw. And so you kind of take away Stevenson and Trevion, where they are going to excel when they're leading and they can just run the ball. And then between the receivers on the outside and Hunter Henry, more often than not, if teams are protecting a lead, they're giving up the middle of the field. And that's just a lot of catches that can funnel to Hunter Henry, especially against the Chargers defense. So I think in the scenario where you think the Patriots are going to be eliminated early, Hunter Henry makes a lot of sense. Diggs can do well for sure. But that tight end premium means so much that it's, you gotta, I mean, like I said, last year I had at least one team that had 5 tight ends on it. And, it's just, it plays a lot into the sort of analysis of how to construct this out.
Their opponent in the first round is the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that sat as many starters seemingly as they could this past week in Week 18. So Justin Herbert gets back after a week off. He'll be throwing to the likes of Quentin Johnston, Vlad McConkey, Keenan Allen, Rondé Gadsden. I feel like there's somebody else I'm forgetting there. And then obviously Omarion Hampton coming out of the backfield. I think that most people will probably, I don't want to say be fading the Chargers, but not a lot of people picking them to win week 1. Even if they do win wild card weekend, I don't know if they get to a third game. So maybe it doesn't make a difference between one game or 2 games. What players stand out there? Is it simply just Hampton and you feel you plug in that extra flex or that running back 2 or running back 1 position with him? Or is there a pass catcher that maybe you think might stand out a little bit more than I'm giving them credit for?
Yeah, I think if their offensive line was healthier, I think this would be a team that could really make some noise. I'm a Michigan fan. I think Harbaugh and Minter are great coaches, and I think that they'll have something well set up. And they essentially got a bye week in Week 18, so they're going to be rested to the extent that they could be, which Herbert will definitely benefit from. Again, I don't think the Patriots pose that many problems defensively for the Chargers. The Pats schedule, and again, you play the schedule and the teams that are in front of you, and nobody expected the Patriots to be this good, but their schedule was atrocious. They played bum after bum after bum. And so all these wins that they put together, they're impressive. But when you look actually at everything, I think I saw earlier today, DVOA wise, they're 15 and the Chargers are 16. So this isn't this giant disparity. I think both coaches are great. And I think that the Pats can be thrown on in this game. I think the Chargers can, and they're going to let Herbert win or lose this game for them. Gadsden had his flash in the pan in the middle of the year where it's like, oh man, this is a tight end that's going to win people fantasy leagues, and then he fell off the earth. Yeah. I had Vlad McConkey, and he fell off the earth for sure in the last several games. Quentin Johnston can't catch a ball. Keenan Allen is old, so I don't know who you picked there, but Omarion Hampton is a really, really good player. So I see myself having some shares of Justin Herbert because I really do think that they can beat the Patriots and the Chargers and have a shot to go far. But yeah, I mean, there's no one singular receiver that stands out for them. They distribute the ball all over the place.
Yeah, and like you said with Harbaugh and Minter, they run. They like to run and play defense as much as that. I mean, everybody wants to. They always say that, right? Well, we want to run the ball. We want to play tough.
They're going to do it.
But yes, exactly. The execution is there in Los Angeles.
Right.
All right. Getting back to Tom Smith's point earlier, mentioned the fades of Carolina and Pittsburgh. I want to get into Pittsburgh here right now. The lowest total of Wild Card Weekend is the Texans and Steelers. Now, Pittsburgh is hosting the game on Sunday night. However, they are 3-point underdogs in this. And I think this is the only total under 40. Yes, it is the only total under 40 right now. Does that mean you are just simply fading the Steelers? Do you choose the Steelers defense? Is there a special spot in your heart for Chris Boswell here? Maybe he drills a bunch of field goals. I don't know. But first off, before we get into the Texans, I do want to get your handle on Pittsburgh, who will welcome back after a 2-week absence one DK Metcalf as well. So another pepper in the gumbo here, Harshal.
Nothing about, I think I said this at the very beginning. The NFL is the king of things that don't make sense, right? Pittsburgh is not good by most metrics. My friends know what I think of Mike Tomlin as a head coach. Newsflash, I don't think he's very good. Houston's defense is amazing. Baltimore was a 4-point favorite at Pittsburgh this past week and lost, which they should have won. But now Houston opened as a 3.5-point favorite and quickly got bet down to 3. So are we thinking that Baltimore is a better team than Houston with that defense? It doesn't make sense, right? So we're looking at a low-scoring potential game here where everything shouts Houston, but that's when the NFL is like, not so fast. We're not following the script that you want here. As good as the Houston D is, and they're elite, right? DK Metcalf hasn't been able to get separation in 5 years.
Right.
So I don't think that he's going to do anything, especially with Stingley on him. But Rodgers isn't dumb. He's not going to sit back there and allow the pass rushers of the Houston defense to just annihilate him. So I think you're going to see a lot of short passes, try and run the ball with Jaylen Warren. I don't see where their offense comes from, but something is just saying expect the unexpected. And I don't know if it's going to be special teams or what. Boswell's always good. He can, again, Tomlin's in-game coaching is questionable at best. So he'll be kicking field goals or at least attempting them when really he shouldn't be. But at least that's points that you can accumulate. And even at Pittsburgh, somehow he drills them from 50, 55, even on that field. So that's definitely an option. But Kenneth Gainwell is someone to look at there just because of the short passes. Rodgers is on the record saying he has the best hands on the team, like inclusive of wide receivers. And he's just Houston's defense is not going to do what Baltimore's defense did, which is just gash after gash after gash once Hamilton was out. So I think you're going to see a lot of quick dump offs, and this could be the kind of game where Gainwell has like 7 for 50 and a touchdown.
Kenneth Gainwell had over 1,000 total yards this season. He also got 8 touchdowns, and he had 73 catches, including 29 catches in his last 5 games. That's what I was going to ask you about. Yeah. Is like we don't love anybody on Pittsburgh. I mean, you mentioned Metcalf as a guy that just seemingly has to make contested catches every single time because he can't get any separation. I don't know if the game script is going to favor Warren, but then you have a guy like Kenneth Gainwell, man, what a weapon that he's been for Pittsburgh. And I'd be very interested to see. I mean, it's a slam dunk that he's going to be owned by more players than Jaylen Warren, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Moving on to Houston, their opponent in this game. There's Nico Collins. He got the week off last week, so that was good. You have a pass catching running back in Woody Marks. Don't forget about Dalton Schultz as far as tight ends go. But then I think about this defense. Is it simply too good to ignore? Like, do we have to take a long look at playing the Texans defense, despite, especially I'll bring up Nico Collins. I think that's the toughest decision for me. Am I essentially choosing the Texans defense over Nico Collins? Harshal, what's the best way to handle the Texans?
So this is one of those ones that I think, again, you don't want to make a roster of 12 contrarian picks, right? That's sure you're going to get one or two of those, but you're going to look like pretty terrible on the other 10 picks. This is one where there's some contrarian thought process for me. Jaden Higgins stands out. He's come on super strong. He's one of their 2 rookie receivers. He's been getting tons of red zone targets lately, and they trust him. So his yards per route running is increasing, and he could definitely be someone to shift away ownership from Nico if you're going from a skill position player option. The defense is great, but again, I don't know that Rodgers is going to afford the Texans picking up points. And I hope that most people, or assume that most people that are doing the FFPC contest, look at the defensive scoring. I think once you give up like 13 points, you're already out of collecting points as a defense. So you're really picking up points defensively for things like a safety or sacks or interceptions or fumbles. But Rodgers isn't going to be a sitting duck back there. He's going to get rid of it within 1 or 2 seconds. I think he was the fastest to release, as it was this year in the NFL. So yes, game-wise, they're very good. But in terms of scoring on this, unless you have a quarterback that's just going to be handing you the ball, they may not excel in this format as much. That, and if you're taking them to win against Pittsburgh, which I assume many people will, now you're dedicating 2 games to a defense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, if seeds hold, they would go to Denver, which is fine. But again, Denver's got a very strong offensive line, and Sean Payton's a good coach. So he's not going to allow them to tee off on Bo Nix either. So in terms of them picking up a lot of points because of things like touchdowns or special teams, it could happen, but I don't know that I want to hitch my wagon to them.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that potential Houston-Denver game in the divisional playoff. What's the total on that game? Like 13, 14? With those 2 defenses could be really crazy.
Yeah.
We've talked about every single team playing on Wild Card weekend. I want to, speaking of Denver, let's talk about the 2 teams that will not be playing this weekend, that have the bye in the next week. Denver is, I think I said this earlier, I think they had the shortest odds. Yeah, they had the shortest odds to win the Super Bowl in the AFC. They have obviously the shortest odds to win the AFC, is to get to the Super Bowl as well. When you consider how the Broncos offense is structured and how they move the ball, how they chew up yardage, it's been sort of a revolving door at the number 2 receiver this season. It seems like, Devon Vele had his time before he got traded. Then it was Marvin Mims. Troy Franklin worked in there as well. Pat Bryant had a few weeks where he was the number 2. Yeah, and then he got hurt. So the thing here with Denver is, okay, well, let's go to the running game, right? Well, RJ Harvey had like 50 carries last week for like 10 yards against the Chargers backups, which made no sense to me. And then you have to consider that the Broncos, and I haven't heard anything about this within the last week or so, but I did hear about it before that J.K. Dobbins could come back. And if the Broncos make a deep Super Bowl run and you have Harvey on your team, he could end up having some of those touches go to J.K. Dobbins in for the last 2 games of this competition as well. Okay, so we pivot to Courtland Sutton. Certainly that's a fine pick. I don't think there's any necessarily holes in that, other than Sean Payton loves to rotate all his receivers. So then I guess there's a volume question with Sutton. Right. There's no tight end to speak of. I mean, I am not an Evan Engram guy at all. And then it comes back to Bo Nix. You want to have a quarterback on the team that has the shortest odds to get to the Super Bowl from the AFC, and yet he's been very inconsistent when it comes. I mean, you think about a few weeks ago, he threw for 3 or 4 touchdowns, ran another one in, looked like a world beater, and then he has these other games where he just really struggles to make any kind of passes, and the defense has to bail him out. Yeah. So as far as number 1 seeds go, This is a weird one for Denver, the way that they've won this year and the way that they're going to have to keep advancing into the postseason. I don't really have a good answer here on what Bronco I want to go with.
I think the entire AFC is a total toss-up. I think the NFC is a toss-up because the teams are very strong. I think the AFC teams are not the tier that we have seen in recent years with the Bills or the Chiefs or even the Ravens. And I can't figure out specifically if the Broncos are good or not. I mean, they had this one game against the Packers at home that they just looked like world beaters.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've had games where Jacksonville dominated them. They should have lost to the Giants. They should have lost to the Commanders. They barely beat the Chiefs on their third string quarterback. They didn't put away the Raiders one of the games, right? I mean, like, these are weird things, but Sean Payton is elite. He almost helped. He had a great game plan against the Bills last year when Denver was the 7th seed. And so I'm sure that he'll have them ready for whoever they play next weekend in the divisional round. But I don't see a scenario where he wants to win by Bo Nix having to shoulder the load.
Yeah.
He's got an elite defense. They've got a great defensive line. They have two guys that can really get to the quarterback. They've got an elite offensive line. And your point about rotating receivers, they rotate running backs too. I had J.K. Dobbins ownership this year, and inside the 5, that was RJ Harvey time almost. And then when Dobbins went out and Harvey was the main back, they would rotate in McLaughlin. It doesn't make sense. And so you're really just kind of throwing a dart on the wall there and saying, who do I think is going to be the answer here? If you think Denver's one and done, that's a nice kicker defense option or a total fade. But game to game, it's going to vary. Sutton, one game will be good, one game won't. Troy Franklin will be rostered one weekend on waivers the next because he does absolutely nothing. Evan Ingram's got the talent, and Sean Payton's on record saying he's the Joker and I want to use him, but then it never came to fruition.
Right.
So it's good luck with the Broncos. I don't know. I don't think that Bo Nix is the answer. I think if he's having to do a lot, that means Denver's in trouble.
Is the right play with Denver then, if you do think they make a deep run, just splashing around with a lot of these guys? Harvey?
Yeah, I think if you're going to have a lot of entries and you kind of keep similar entries across other teams, then throw in various Broncos on individual teams so you kind of cover yourself with the bases.
On the flip side, the 1 seed in the NFC, there is a dominant choice there, and it could be – I haven't looked at the odds. I think he's going to be Offensive Player of the Year in Jackson Smith-Njigba, who had an historic target share this season in Seattle. Sam Darnold basically only had eyes for Smith-Njigba most of the season. You do have a split backfield. There's no like dominant Barkley, James Cook type rusher here. It's Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. I mean, AJ Barner's a fine tight end. I don't know how good of a choice he is in this. And then obviously, I would have thought Rashid Shaheed would have been a player here at the trade deadline, but for whatever reason, he just has been very unimpactful since the Seahawks acquired him. And I don't know about you, but I'm a weak man. I can't put Sam Darnold in as my quarterback. So it comes back to the defense, right? We have to look at the Seattle defense as well. And I don't know if you want to utilize not
on the 1 seed,
not only the 1 seed, Harshal, but the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, with Seattle. So everybody and their mother wants to pick Smith-Njigba. Is that the correct play? Is that just like, hey, we got to do it this way? Or can you tell yourself a story? Can you create a case for another entity on the Seahawks team that might be a difference maker in this competition?
Yeah, I mean, with regards to Shaheed, the impact that he made was that punt return in the fourth quarter against the Rams when they were down 16. Without that touchdown, Seattle's playing this weekend. But yeah, he hasn't generated any of the volume. I think that they brought him in to really take the top off the defense and just open up more for JSN, but he doesn't need help. JSN is so elite at getting separation. Thank God Seattle knew that and got rid of Metcalf, because this guy is the best at getting separation. And no matter what coverages are thrown his way, he'll get his. The Rams did a really nice job in that Week 16 matchup to limit him in the first half. I think he had like 1 catch or something. But then by the end of it, he still had like 8 for 100 and a touchdown at the end. You're right about Sam Darnold until he proves the ghost wrong. I mean, he was terrible in both games against the Rams. and they're looking most likely like it's going to be the Rams again, whether it's in the divisional round or at the conference championship, if depending on how things play out this weekend. So at some point, Darnold's going to have to do something to make people believers that he can do it when it counts against elite teams and not get tricked by defensive coverages. So, and Darnold doesn't run for anything, so it's really hard to justify him as your QB under any scenario. I think at some point you have to be chalk, and JSN is as chalk as it gets. Like, yeah, sure, Charbonnet or Walker might have a good game and might end up being the answer if it in terms of an optimal lineup construction that you look at after the playoffs are done, and maybe that one of those two outpoint JSN, but you're not going to want to donate money under that scenario.
No, you're not. I saw a graphic. Adam Schefter, somebody might have posted on X about Sam Darnold and Tom Brady are now the only quarterbacks.
14 wins, two straight years.
Back-to-back 14-win seasons. And I was thinking, like, God, if the Seahawks keep winning in the postseason, there's going to be more and more of this weird stuff where Darnold is in this rarefied air.
I mean, that extra game helps for the stats like that, right? You're looking at Brady 14-2, it's
right.
14-3, but
14-3, yeah, that's true.
But I mean, but when Darnold is bad, he's bad.
Yeah, and you think about some of these defenses that he might have to go through to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, Vic Fangio's
Philadelphia, the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams. The Bears, who have, say what you will about the Bears, but one thing that defense has been able to do this season is turn the ball over. Yeah. And that's where Darnold kind of stubs his toe a little bit. Okay. Two more questions for you, Harshal. I guess I want to sort of encapsulate this and break it down. Elevator pitch for you. If somebody says to you, what, like, when I'm building my rosters, what's the one thing, the two things, the three things I need to keep in mind that always need to be on my mind when I'm making sure I'm building the best, optimal, most optimized rosters I can in this playoff competition in the FFPC?
I think we touched on the first one a couple of times. You got to project out the NFL playoffs. You have to. If you're just picking from wildcard weekend and working towards a Super Bowl, you're lost. I can tell you're lost right away. So there's that. Strongly consider correlated plays. So even if you're trying to pick a defense just as a throwaway pick, don't use the defense where they are facing your quarterback, because inherently one of those two aren't going to do well, right? If your QB does well, well, then your defense is just a total stinker. And if the defense does really well, maybe that team wins and now you just lost your QB. So really, really analyzing the playoffs in totality and then thinking about how you want to pick your players. That's step one. Step two.
Go ahead.
Step two, I think you need to have some contrarian picks. Again, you don't want to have more than a couple out of the 14, but something that's going to differentiate you, because ultimately by the conference championships, you can look at the leaderboard and you're going to see the same remaining 4 players on 70 of the top 100 teams, where you're going to be happy that you're in 90th place and your best outcome is 70th, right? Because everyone is going to be similar to you. So while I'm saying that you need to have your players constructed backwards, you still need to have something different in this weekend or next that'll give you those extra points to jump everybody else and be ahead of them. So really kind of, you do need to analyze these teams that are going to be one and done, because like I said, you're going to end up with a kicker defense and 2 flexes in an ideal world that are out after this weekend. And just getting good points from those can really be the difference of you having a shot to win it all or not at all.
Do you, I have a number in my head. Do you feel like there's a number in your head or a number of contrarian players that you like to insert into every lineup? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? Where do you sort of fall in on that? Or does it, I guess maybe it depends. It varies from team to team.
Yeah, it just varies from team to team. I mean, it could be as little as 1 if you want to keep 13 picks the same and just be different on one of them somewhere else. Again, you're not going to hit very many of the contrarian picks. It's like you have to pick and choose your battles so that you don't bury yourself if that contrarian doesn't do well. But you want to have something that differentiates you. So I'd say maybe 1 or 2 at most.
1 or 2. Okay, interesting.
And probably paying a little bit more close attention to the tight end position just because of that premium that they offer.
All right. We have broken down a lot of players tonight. Feel free to reuse any of the players we talked about. Maybe there's a player we didn't talk about that might fall into one of the categories I'm about to ask you. But if there is a must roster, if there is a must have in this competition, who would it be? Which player would it be? And then Harshal, another player that you know is going to be rostered by a ton of people in this contest, but you won't be one of those people rostering him.
I think for the player to roster, to me, it's Puka. He's just indefensible. I mean, they've played on national TV so much lately, and just week after week, the kind of catches that he makes just don't make sense. Even that fourth down incomplete pass at the end of the game against the Falcons, just because on slow-mo instant replay, there was a little bit of a bobble at the end.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. Stafford's going to throw him the ball. And now with Devontae having been out the last couple of weeks, they've been throwing to Puka from inside the 1 and the 2 yard line, where Devontae was getting all of his touchdowns that way. So you're going to get volume, you're going to get yards, you're going to get touchdowns, and you're going to get at least 2 games as the surest bet across all the teams, right? Even the 1 seeds, they're not going to be prohibitive favorites the way that the Rams are against the Panthers right now. So you're almost guaranteed 2 games from the Rams, where everybody else, you can't say the same in terms of the guarantee of playing even 2. So to me, it's Puka even more so than Stafford. And then again, as of now, the player that I'm probably going to fade is McCaffrey. I don't think that he is healthy. We saw that leading up to the Seahawks game that he had to miss practice a little bit. And again, with as important as that game was, to be missing anything. And I think he ended up with like sub 15 touches. And in the Bears game, I think he was over 30. So that plus Trent Williams, plus Brock Purdy dealing with a shoulder issue. Kittle might be at full strength, but he was coming off the low ankle sprain. And the matchup is just not the greatest for the Niners against the Eagles. I think that the Niners are likely to lose. And you can probably separate yourself a little bit if everybody else has McCaffrey and he has a subpar game.
8 carries for 23 yards, 6 catches for 34 yards in that Seahawks game. Disappointing his in-laws by saying McCaffrey will not be on any of his teams. Hey, that's the way it is. And you've already been to the mountaintop. You've done it once already. I certainly appreciate all your insight tonight on this show. Harshal Sheth, ladies and gentlemen, the 2015-2016 $100,000 grand prize co-champ of the world famous FFPC Playoff Challenge. Compete against him now this year at myffpc.com. Harsh, my best to you. Good luck this season. And listen, if you take it down again this year, you'll be coming back on to tell me how you did it. Quite frankly, you probably already told me how you did it on this show tonight. And many other people will probably be utilizing a lot of the tips, tricks, and advice you gave tonight. So thank you so much for that. And good luck in the competition. Enjoy the NFL postseason, my friend.
Thanks as always, Eric.
You got it. That is Harshal Sheth, ladies and gentlemen, the $100K winner of the 2015-2016 World Famous FFPC Playoff Challenge, hanging out with us tonight on the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. So good to have him on, and good luck to you if you are participating in the Playoff Challenge, which you should be. I mean, it's one last chance to win $500,000 this season. Register now, myffpc.com. You heard us break it down. It is one 12-player lineup for the entire duration. You don't touch it. Once the wild card starts, you just sit back, relax, enjoy, and watch your team move up the scoreboard. A $500,000 grand prize at just a $200 entry. Don't forget, we have a separate contest, the exact same thing, $35 entry for a $100,000 grand prize. myffpc.com is where to go. No draft, no salary cap, no convoluted rules. It is easy. It is simple. And it's a lot of fun watching the postseason when you have those teams in there. So that will complete tonight's show. Want to remind everybody that we will be live Thursday night on the Better Sports Network with FFPC Insider Access. RotoWire's own Joe Bartle will join me, a heavy playoff challenge episode. We're going to go through all the teams. We're going to build some lineups as well on the show. So you don't want to miss that. Joe is awesome, and he's making his debut on that program. That's going to be a lot of fun. Then Friday night, we will have Farrell Elliott and myself. We might build some lineups there, some playoff challenge lineups there as well. We'll see. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind on that. I haven't structured that show yet, but we'll see what happens there. I had a guest booked, and he had to bow out, but he was a top 3 finisher in the FFPC, the $35 FFPC Playoff Challenge last year. Very excited to come on. Wanted this guy on. It fell through because he can't make it. So I'm still booking a guest on that, but we're going to try to get a Playoff Challenge champion or expert or somebody who's done very well on that. That's the plan for Friday night on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour at 10 p.m. Eastern with myself and the KFFSC's own Farrell Elliott. We have the season finale of this show coming up next Tuesday. This will be, God, how many seasons? This ninth season? No, it's the 10th season. So we'll have the 10th season finale next Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Ken Ford will be the guest. You've seen him on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Very talented and successful season-long player. He joins me to tell about his success in the playoff challenge, in the divisional playoff challenge last year, and we'll get into some divisional playoff analysis then as well. You can watch that right here at 10 p.m. Eastern on the FFPC socials, or if you're listening to this on the RotoViz podcast stream as well. So that will complete tonight's episode. For Harshal Sheth, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. Get those lineups in, get those teams entered into the playoff challenge, and may the ball bounce your way in the NFL postseason. Talk with you again next Tuesday night.
Thank you for listening to the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. And thanks to Grapes for our theme music. Please review the podcast on Apple Podcasts under the RotoViz radio feed. It helps us find new listeners. Contact us via email at rotovizradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think, and connect with us on X at RotoVizRadio. Remember, you can always support the show by subscribing to RotoViz at a 10% discount using the code RVRadio2025. That's RVRADIO2025 through the NFL Podcast homepage at rotoviz.com/podcast.